Guys, so this is gonna be my first story time video. So I'll be like playing Dandy's World and telling you like a story and stuff. This isn't actually like a real story. It's one that I made up that I thought you would like. Okay, let's start. So once there was a group of kids. Like their names were Star, Amelia, Marcus, and Bob. Okay? I couldn't think of any other name for the last one, so I just named him Bob. So they were like just like online doing stuff, but then they saw an ad for this really super duper cool playground. There was like slides and swings, and there was a ball pit and a foam pit, and it just looked so colorful and beautiful, and they really wanted to go. So they went to their like parents and stuff, and they were like, "Can we please go here, please, please, please?" And since they had nothing else to do, it was like a holiday, it was Saturday, they decided, yeah, she can go. And they can go. So as they were driving, they kept like looking at like the ads and stuff, and they just like kept looking at all the ads on like all this, and it was so cool. When they arrived, it looked exactly like the photos, and it looked so good all the same. Like, it was just so, like, I don't know. They've never been to like a playground like this. It was like indoors, and there was like, it was just so cool. So, Marcus and Bob were like the bestest of friends. So Bob was like doing some stuff, like going on the slide. But then Marcus went over to Bob and told Bob that he should come with Marcus so that he could explore. As like Bob and Marcus were like running around trying all the different stuff, they noticed something. There was like a door, like a hidden door on the wall. So Marcus pointed that out to Bob and asked, why was it there? Since these are like little kids, they decided that they wanted to open it and see it. But the door was locked. So they called over Star and Amelia. You know, Amelia, she watches like a bunch of crime shows with like her mom and stuff. Like she watches like documents and stuff. Amelia took out like a hairpin, like a bobby pin, like you know those things, and she stuck it through the keyhole, and then twisted it a little. Then it made a click sound. Then it opened. So they all went inside and thought that it was a long hallway, and it was completely different from the playground. It was like dark, and the walls were made out of like this dark gray metal. They kept walking along it, but then when they reached the end of the hallway to the left, there was another hallway, but this time with a bunch of like light gray metal doors. So they went inside the first one, the one that was closest to them, and there was, you know, like when you go to the dentist and you have to sit in that like bed while the dentist does that stuff. Yeah, it was one of those beds. And there were a bunch of wires and stuff. So then they were like, okay, this is kind of boring. Let's go to the others. There were 5 doors. So they went to 4 doors. and it was just the same old bed. But when they went to the fifth door, it was like at the end of the hallway. It was the same, but there was a person sitting in, like laying down in the bed, and there were wires attached to him. That was weird. So they kept exploring, and they saw like a big red button. They of course pressed it, but then the walls started to open up, and it revealed a whole weaponry. Like weapons everywhere. Like it was like the wall opened up and there were weapons like inside the wall. So it wasn't like fake weapons, it was real like darts and knives and guns. So they were like, okay, this is really weird. But then they heard the door opening. So half of the kids, Star and Marcus, hid under the bed, and the other kids, Bob and Amelia, hid under the table. That was like a desk. Oh, I got marathon runner. That's nice. So they basically. So Star and Marcus said, "Bro, that's such a stupid place to hide. Whoever's coming is gonna see you and immediately come hide under the bed." So Bob and Amelia went under the bed. The door opened, but the kids didn't see a pair of legs. They saw like a black cloak with no legs. Okay, so it would be better if I drew it out, but it was since they couldn't see the face, they could only see the body. It was like the end of a black cloak. And they were trying to be as quiet as possible. It was silent for a couple of seconds. And then the whoever it was who just came reached under the bed to try and grab whatever was under there. So the kids went to the far edge of the bed. So that they wouldn't get grabbed by whoever this was. But the hand, it wasn't a normal skin color, like a normal hand. It was kind of it was black, not dark brown, completely black, the same color as the cloak. So they were okay, this is not a normal human being. So one of the kids, Marcus, was at the edge, and there was a fire extinguisher next to the bed. Luckily, Marcus could reach it. So Marcus grabbed the fire extinguisher and then went a little closer to the hand and then slammed the fire extinguisher down at the hand, completely slammed. The hand retracted back so that it wasn't under the bed. And then everyone just okay. So while the man, whoever entered, was oh, that was hurt. Someone just threw a fire extinguisher at your hand. The kids ran out from under the bed and out the door. The door was opened because the man didn't close it. So the man, okay, so they barely could see the man, but they knew it wasn't like a normal like human. He had like, there was no like, okay, so he didn't have hair. He was just wearing like a giant cloak. And then he was, no, it wasn't a cloak. It was kind of like a scarf. Like he had it wrapped around his head, and it was black. And then he didn't have legs. So he had hands, but it wasn't like the normal hand shape even. It was like a triangle basically. But like a really long triangle. So the kids, they didn't even bother to like look at the man. They just ran for their lives out of the room and out of there. They begged Star's parents, like, please, please, please come take us home, please, please, please. So then Star was like, okay, Star's parents were like, okay, let's go home. And then while they were like driving, Star was telling her parents about like, oh, there was this dark figure, and oh, it was scary, and oh, there was a secret door, and we went under, and then okay, so Star's parents were like listening to her really carefully, but then like Star's mom turned to like her dad and was like, kids these days always imagining things. Star's parents did not believe a word that Star said. And Star overheard this, so Star was like, oh my god, okay, parents, don't get it. So the Star's parents dropped all the friends home and then went home to their own home and slept. But Star did not sleep at all after what just happened. Okay? So the next day, okay, so Star, all her friends like didn't sleep for like almost the whole day, but then eventually they fell asleep. So when they woke up, they were in their house. They were in the same playground that they were in yesterday. Okay, that's weird. Why are they like not at home? So then the first one to wake up was Star. So Star woke up all her other friends. And then Star was like, why are we not at home? And why are we in the play area? These were two questions that they almost never got the answer to. So they were like, of course, scared. Like, why were they not at home? Why were they in the same play area? So then Star turned around hoping that the door was like open or like unlocked. But so Amelia took out like the bobby pin and stuff and tried to like open the door again. But it wasn't like a regular like keyhole. It was like a lock. Like you know those locks that you see in detective movies? It was that. So okay. So basically, so they turned back to the doors. Not to the doors. They turned back to the doors of that like where they hid on the bed and stuff. And then looked back at the door to the exit. But then they realized that there was like a phone, like an old phone, next to like the doors to the exit. So Star tried calling like her parents on the phone. And then it went ring, ring, ring. And then no one answered. So, okay, that's weird. Why would her parents not answer? They're usually awake at this time. Maybe their like phone battery's out or something. That was confusing. So they turned back to the doors where they hid under the bed. And then they were like, okay, there's no way we're going back in there. Let's just like try something else. So they asked Marcus if he still had the fire extinguisher. And you might think, no, of course not. Why would Marcus bring a fire extinguisher home? But Marcus did bring the fire extinguisher home. Because what else was he supposed to do? Leave it there? I mean, yeah, but they're kids. Somehow his parents didn't notice.
What are you doing?
Anyways.
Just don't step on it. I'm gonna step on it. It's there. What? It's dirty.
So,
Nothing.
so they went around like the playground trying to find like maybe there's another door or something. But they didn't find anything. The only thing they could do was go to the door again. So they tried unlocking it and it wasn't even locked this time. The door just like swung open. So they went inside, and it was the same long corridor, and with the same like doors at the end. They checked all the doors again, but this time when they went to like room 5, door 5, it was different. The man was like still like. The man that was laying on the bed was still there. But, like this time, there were like more wires attached to him. And there was like a whiteboard. And there were like plans on the whiteboard. And there were like drawings of stuff. But they weren't just like any drawings. They were drawings of like so Amelia watches like the crime documents, right? And Amelia saw like oh, there's this villain and he makes inventions to like kill the town and stuff. So the whiteboard showed one of this guy's inventions. So Amelia was like, guys, I don't think this guy is just any normal guy. And then Star was like, yeah, we know. Yeah, it's kind of obvious. When Amelia was like, no, guys, did you see the news about like the villain and stuff? Everyone said like, yeah. And then Amelia said, I think the guy that we saw yesterday is this villain. So then they all like froze and started to put the pieces together. The guy that was like the villain on the news also didn't have like any legs. They showed like pictures and stuff. And this guy was like almost the exact same as the guy that they saw yesterday. It was just that they didn't see his face properly, so they didn't know. Maybe it was a relative or something. So, this time, they were like, okay, so what do we do now? How do we get back home? So, no one had an answer to that. They all just like stood there in the room. And then But then they took a closer like look at the guy. You know, Star had a brother, but his name was Ryan. But he went missing a couple days earlier. Star took a closer look at the like man on the bed and took a closer look at his face. But then she didn't see like a random man just like on the bed. It was her brother. Her brother was there on the bed with wires attached to him. And looking like he was about to turn into a science experiment. Star just kept staring at at her brother. Because like what else are you supposed to do when you realize that like, oh, your brother is being turned into like a monster or something? It was so confusing for her. Like, these are just little kids. And so they were just like, oh no. So then they heard the footsteps coming again. So this time they didn't hear like footsteps. They like heard the door opening again. They didn't know where to hide because they already hid under the bed. So this time they just hid under the bed again, but this time made zero sound. Marcus held up the fire extinguisher, ready to like swing. And then the man was back. But this time, they saw the man had like wires and electrical cables in his hand. That's weird. So then they were like, what is this guy gonna do to the man in the bed? So I want to check button. 1 second, I need to go put the phone in charge. Pause the story. Charge it. Where's the charger? Okay, anyways. Wait, where was I? Okay. So the man started attaching like wires to like the walls and stuff. And they thought, okay, of course it's weird because like, why is this guy attaching wires? But then they realized that he wasn't only holding wires. He was holding like life-size like parts, like almost like animatronic parts, like life-size parts, like hands and like claws. So they were like, okay, what is this guy actually gonna do? So then they like just like hid under the bed the whole time. And this time he didn't swing. Marcus didn't swing because like okay, so the guy, the like cloak guy, like the scarf guy, didn't like notice them this time. So they just like hid under the bed and watched the guy attach these parts to the man in the bed, to Star's brother. Ryan and watched him just kept watching him until he left. Took out like, I don't know, maybe more robot parts. So then they got up from under the bed and looked at the man. He was like half human and half robot at the same time. That was really confusing. So they just like, they heard the man opening the door again and decided to like go back in the hiding spot and keep hiding. And the man came back, this time with more robot parts, and attached them to Ryan. But then he stopped. And then the kids realized that he was done with like the robot and stuff. So they were like, okay, what is this guy gonna even do with a robot? The guy, the like scarf guy, had like a remote control thingy and pressed a button on it. And then as if like on command, Ryan, the robot, lifted from like the bed and he wasn't like, basically it wasn't the same person anymore. It went from human to a full robot. Okay, what is this guy even doing? Why is he making robots? What is this guy's plan? So, they were like, okay, they were just like frozen under the bed. And then the robot started moving. And then basically like moving towards, okay, wait guys, I gotta go, okay? So like this is it. I'll tell you in part 2, okay? Okay, bye.